For years, a shadow war has been simmering between Iran and Israel. Well, that war just exploded out into the open, and now the aftershocks are threatening to pull the entire world into the fire. Today, we're going to break down exactly how we got to the brink and what could possibly happen next. And I know that sounds dramatic, but this isn't just hyperbole. This is the question being asked right now in the highest offices of power all around the globe. Foreign policy experts are genuinely worried that what we're watching unfold could be the prelude to a much, much bigger war.
You know, they see it as a line of dominoes just waiting to be tipped over. Analysts are looking at this terrifyingly clear path where a regional firestorm ignites a chain reaction, pulling in the major world powers and spiraling into a global catastrophe.
So what makes this moment so different, so much more dangerous? To really understand the risk here, we first have to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of Iran's military response. It's something else.
If there's one word that defense analysts keep using over and over, it's this one: unprecedented. Seriously, this isn't a typical tit-for-tat military strike. The massive number of weapons and the huge geographic area being targeted, it's unlike anything we've ever seen in this conflict.
And get this is not just an Iran versus Israel fight anymore, not by a long shot. The attacks have deliberately spread all across the Gulf, hitting not just Israel, but also the UAE and other states like Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait. The whole battlefield is just widened dramatically.
The type of weapons being used also tells a really important story. We're seeing this combination of sophisticated ballistic missiles for those high-impact targets, swarms of drones designed to just overwhelm air defenses, and maybe most disturbingly, cluster warheads, a weapon choice that has drawn huge international condemnation.
So, you might be wondering, what exactly are cluster munitions? Well, think of a big container that opens up in midair and just scatters hundreds of smaller explosives, or bomblets, over a massive area. The problem is, they're completely indiscriminate, posing a huge risk to civilians. Plus, any that don't explode can just lie there for years, like mini landmines, and that's exactly why their use is so controversial.
All right, so an attack on this scale doesn't just happen out of nowhere, right? There has to be a reason. So what was the spark that lit this fuse? Well, the answer isn't just on the battlefield. It's also about economics.
You can pretty much draw a straight line from cause to effect here. First, Israeli airstrikes hit a supercritical piece of Iran's economy, the South Pars gas field, one of the largest energy facilities on the planet. Iran's government immediately called it an act of war and promised a powerful retaliation. And, well, now we're seeing them make good on that promise.
And you have to pay attention to the exact language Iran used. This phrase is crucial. They didn't just call it a military strike. They called it a full-scale economic war. That choice of words was a very clear signal that they were justifying the intense, widespread counteroffensive that was about to come.
And that widespread counteroffensive is having an absolutely devastating impact, especially on the neighboring Gulf states that are now caught right in the middle of this.
Just look at these numbers. They're frankly staggering. According to Defense Ministry figures, we're talking about more than 300 ballistic missiles fired at the UAE. And these aren't small rockets. These are powerful, guided weapons designed for major damage. For any country, trying to defend against that kind of assault is a monumental task.
But the missiles are only part of the story. On top of that, you have over 1,700 drone attacks. And this isn't random, it's deliberate strategy. You send in swarms of cheaper drones to confuse and exhaust the air defense systems, and that clears a path for the much more powerful ballistic missiles to get through and hit their targets.
And of course, behind all these military stats is a devastating human cost. We're seeing tragic reports of civilians and foreign nationals being killed, hundreds more injured, and just massive damage to the critical infrastructure, the power plants, the ports, the things that keep the whole region running.
So the reaction from Iran's neighbors has been really swift and frankly unified. In what is a pretty rare show of consensus for the region, Arab governments and other Islamic nations are publicly demanding that Iran stop. They're warning that this aggression doesn't just threaten their own security, but global stability.
All of this brings us right back to the big picture and that huge, looming question, what happens next? Right now, the entire world is on high alert.
And you can bet the major world powers are not just sitting back and watching. The US, European nations, they're all scrambling. They're ramping up diplomatic talks while at the same time moving military assets into position. It's a classic two-track approach. Try to talk it down, but get ready for the worst.
And this is really the key takeaway here. The ultimate fear isn't just about the conflict between Iran and its neighbors, as bad as that is. The real danger, the nightmare scenario, is that one miscalculation, one mistake, could trigger a direct fight between major powers, and that could be the spark that sets the wider world on fire.
So here we are. Every nation involved, from the regional players to the global superpowers, is now facing a series of incredibly high-stakes decisions. The chessboard is set, and the tension is, well, it's at a breaking point. The question that's left hanging in the air is, what's the next move, and what is the final move?